Have you ever sat down, added up your age, your choices, your bank account, your relationships, your career, and thought, I was supposed to be further than this? Not in a dramatic way, just in that quiet, sinking way that shows up on a Tuesday morning during your walk. Not the reinvention montage, not the big, I quit my job and moved to Bali story. Just that private calculation where, for a split second, you wonder if you've somehow mismanaged your own life. Most of us never say it out loud because it sounds ungrateful or dramatic or like we're blaming people we love. So we joke about being behind, scroll past success posts a little faster, overfunction at work, and hope the feeling goes away. If that sentence lives somewhere in you, it's usually because two things are colliding. The life you were told would unfold if you did things right, and the life you actually had to live with the resources, interruptions, responsibilities, and blind spots you started with are not the same. There's nothing wrong with doing a life audit. It can actually prove useful because some gaps are on us, like choices we postponed, conversations we avoided, red flags we romanticized, years we spent numbing out because exhaustion felt safer than change. And some gaps are not on us at all, like housing costs that never matched wages, parents or partners who needed more than we ever planned for, industries that shifted mid-climb, illness that reset everything, bias that met us at every door. A real-life audit has to be able to hold both at the same time without turning you into a villain or a victim. So before we talk about fixing anything, I want you to do something most people skip. Describe your life to yourself like you would describe a stranger's. No branding, no spin, no self-insult. If this was someone else's file of life and you saw their age, income, health, family story, obligations, chances, losses, support system, what would you honestly say about how they've done so far? Most people are harsher on themselves than they would ever be on a stranger. That gap matters because if your starting point is, I'm trash, I've ruined everything, you won't make sound decisions. You'll make panic decisions. You'll chase quick fixes, loud promises, anyone who sells you a personality transplant. And if your starting point is, life just happened to me, I had no part in this, you'll stay loyal to patterns that are quietly wrecking you. The audit has to be cleaner than that. So here's one way to do it that doesn't require a journal or a retreat. Take whatever you have nearby, your notes app, the back of a receipt, the back of an envelope, and draw 3 short columns. Column 1 will have things that are plain facts, like I make this much yearly. I owe this much. I'm in this kind of relationship. My body is dealing with blank. I can call these people if I'm in trouble. Don't add any additional context, just inventory. Column 2 is a bit different. Title it, My Part. Not for self-hate, but for accuracy. Adding instances like, I stayed when I knew or felt I should go. I didn't ask for help because ... I avoided that conversation. I kept saying yes to things that were a no. I chose their comfort over my future more times than I want to admit. For some of us, this column may include this. I kept putting the cart before the horse, building aesthetics before stability, taking on costs, people, and expectations. My actual life couldn't carry yet. You don't need to explain it away, just name it. Column 3 are things that are not your part. The rent, the layoff, the diagnosis, the country I was born into, the family I had to support, the bias in the rooms I walked into, the partner who would not meet me halfway. Again, no speech, just recognition. then look at all three at the same time. Because if you only stare at column 2, you'll punish yourself into paralysis. If you only stare at column 3, you'll wait for a rescue that isn't coming. Column 1 is the ground where you're actually standing. A real life audit is all three held together without flinching. And once you see it like that, the question quietly shifts from, what is wrong with me? To, given this full picture, what is one thing I can adjust that is actually mine to touch? Not 10 things, not a rebrand of your entire personality. One thing. Answering that, honestly, is not only grounding, but more useful and more respectful to your life than any "it's never too late" monologue. So if that Tuesday morning feeling has been following you around, don't outrun it. Don't post through it. Don't medicate it with new goals for show. Sit with it long enough to see whether you've been judging yourself by a story that never included the life you actually had to live. From there, the next move isn't aesthetic, it's structural. And that's where change stops being content and starts being yours. Because when you're in your 50s doing a real life audit, the idea that it's never too late sounds good in theory, but it's not always true. There are some things time actually closed, not metaphorically, not mindset, but literally. And if nobody says that plainly, you end up stuck between two bad options: fake optimism that exhausts you, or quiet despair that convinces you you've already blown it. There's a third option. It's less marketable, but it's real. When you're 25, you've got time is mostly true. When you're 52, you've got time needs an asterisk. Not because you're over, because time has shape now. You can't rewind your fertility window, undo a 20-year pattern of financial neglect overnight, collect 30 years seniority in an industry you just discovered, jump into a field that legally needed training you never got, or recover every opportunity that belonged to a body, an economy, or a moment that's gone. Some doors don't manifest back open because you believe hard enough. If you cling to "it's never too late" as an absolute, you delay the grief work. If you delay the grief work, you delay the chance to build a life that fits the truth of you now. You end up hovering, scrolling success stories of "I became a millionaire at 60, telling yourself you might do something massive, but not making the specific, less glamorous decisions that would actually make your life sturdier now. In my own life, I found naming those things that really are too late, without excuses, no softening, no spiritual bypass, no, but maybe, stops my energy from being trapped in fantasy negotiations with a version of life that is not on the table. Grief is not self-pity. It's returning stolen attention. Once you name it, you create room, and that is where it gets honest. What unfinished need was hiding inside that closed door? Behind, I wanted that career, might be, I wanted to be respected and solvent. Behind, I wanted that relationship to work, might be, I wanted to feel chosen and emotionally safe. Behind, I wanted kids, might be, I wanted to nurture, to belong, to leave something behind. The specific expression may be gone. The underlying need is not. This is where too late becomes more nuanced. It may be too late for that form, but it's not too late for respect, solvency, intimacy, legacy, belonging, creative impact. But to get there now, you need strategy that respects your current constraints, not cosplay as a limitless beginner. Accept constraints as design rules, not a prison sentence. 21-year-old advice says, dream big, no limits. 52-year-old reality says, okay, limits. What can we build that holds? You might have less risk tolerance, have dependence, have chronic pain, have debt, have less time to recover from a bad decision, have less interest in starting from zero for vibes. Those constraints are not insults. They're specs. When an architect designs with real specs, the building stands. When you design your next chapter with your real specs, like income, health, geography, support system, experience, emotional capacity, you stop chasing aesthetic life upgrades and start making structural ones. Structural sounds like, I'm not going back to school for 8 years, but I can stack a 6-month certificate with my existing skills and move into a role that pays more and drains less. I can't erase the divorce, but I can build a financial plan that doesn't depend on reconciliation or a fantasy windfall. I can't get the kids I didn't have, but I can intentionally build intergenerational ties, mentorship, godchildren, community, instead of haunting old timelines. That's not settling. That's purposeful design. At 25, every door looks open, so you can afford confusion. At 50 plus, pretending every door is open keeps you scattered. You don't have spare decades to be scattered. Depth over variety becomes a survival strategy. It's not, what are 19 new lives I could live? It's, what are 1 to 3 precise shifts that would make the next 10 to 20 years less fragile and more honest? Because no matter where you fall in your life audit, one thing is clear. Midlife is not the time to sit by and wing it, nor is it the time to make big decisions without clear thought, real information, and an honest plan. It's also not the time for panic pivots, not the panic move across the country, not the panic relationship, not the panic degree, not the panic business launched from shame at 3 a.m. This is the stage where impulse and avoidance both get too expensive. So the work here isn't to believe bigger. It's to interrupt the old loop. Notice what you reach for when you're scared. Notice how you explain yourself to yourself. Notice the rooms, habits, and people that keep you rehearsing the same story. Then, instead of nuking your life or numbing out, you choose one behavioral shift that actually aligns with the life you say you want. Open the numbers instead of avoiding them. Have the uncomfortable conversation instead of replaying it in your head. Say no once where you've always said yes. Rest on schedule, not only when your body collapses. Apply, inquire, update, or ask for help. Once in real time, not in fantasy. Small, repeatable, observable. Because a life that speaks to who you are now isn't built from declarations. It's built from patterns you can point to. If your audit stings, let it sting long enough to be honest. Then translate that sting into one structural adjustment you can sustain with your actual nervous system, your actual wallet, your actual energy. That is the work needed in midlife. The kind of shift that doesn't just look good in a quote box, but the kind that rewrites how the rest of your life will feel from the inside. If this hits something real for you, I put the full Midlife Life Audit guide in a downloadable format. It walks you through the questions we just talked about in a structured way. The link is below. Drop your email and it's yours. This is part 2 of the end of year midlife series. You can watch part 1 by clicking the link below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you for part 3.